Ridge and whether Mr. Bundy is right or wrong. The point is that we don't need 200 armed federal agents coming in here to do something with cows. See what I'm saying?
He ran him out of his county.
Yeah, back in 2011, the Food and Drug Administration was harassing my Amish farmers for raw milk. I told them, don't come back without a warrant.
Yeah. If you stand up to them, I guess, enough of you, that's what it takes.
Well, and we want this to be peaceful on both sides, obviously, and the sheriff is really the integral part of doing that and making sure. The sheriff represents the people. If you try to contact or complain against the feds, who do you call? There's no face. No. But you have a face on the sheriff. Anyway, I followed this from Indiana from afar when it first started, and I had great concerns as to the outcome. You see, as I grew up as a patrol officer, I remember the days of Ruby Ridge and Waco, and what the federal government did to exacerbate the situation. And so I had great concern. You know what? As I look out over this crowd, I see people exhibiting their Second Amendment rights, and I see people exhibiting their First Amendment rights, protesting peacefully and telling us what you think. I see no domestic terrorists here, or I wouldn't be here. I was concerned upon hearing from Indiana that there was going to be women and children put out on the front line. Well, after some investigation, I found no women and children that were even put out in front, as some has suggested as tactics. Now, we would never do that. We would never put helpless women and children intentionally in harm's way. Oh, sure, there's brave women here and cowgirls that were out there to retrieve some of these cattle back that were the Bundy property. But there were no cowards here. There were no women and children put on the front line. 21 years ago today, Waco happened. And something that could have been handled so peacefully by an elected sheriff in that county is if the feds had an issue with Mr. Koresh, all he would have had to do is say, "Sheriff, we have a warrant for his arrest." And the sheriff would have said, "Yes, he goes to town every day, he jogs, he gets supplies, I'll take care of it." And we would have arrested Mr. Koresh, and there would have been no problems. Instead, we have Instead, we have armed federal agents who cause more problems. That's exactly what we saw the other day. Armed federal agents, 200 federal agents that were armed to the hilt to remove cattle. That's ridiculous. There was property during the Waco situation. After it burned to the ground, what happened? The government quickly buried the evidence. Just exactly what they did here. They tried to bury the cattle that they slaughtered, and that's a difference between what the court order said, purportedly, that you need to impound the cattle. I didn't see any impoundment going on when we're looking at a mass grave. The difference between the sheriff and the feds is the feds have no face. They have no number. Who are you going to call when you want to file a complaint? Who do you even know their names? Of course not. You know the sheriff's name. You know his number. And you know how to get a hold of him. The sheriff can intervene for peaceful results. You see, back in 2011, I had an Amish farmer who was being harassed by the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Justice. In fact, they even subpoenaed him to appear in a grand jury. As sheriff, I determined that it was harassment, and I told the feds, do not come back to this farmer's property unless you have a warrant based on probable cause signed by a judge, or I'll arrest you for trespass. And they haven't been back, and the farmer's milk production has doubled. Mr. Bundy said he would submit to the sheriff if he needed to do so. So I ask, where is the sheriff of Clark County?
Where is the sheriff?
Where is he?
You know, I got in trouble at that Second Amendment rally that you played at the beginning. I got in trouble by the media because they did, the South Bend Tribune and the Fort Wayne Gazette, all both in Indiana here, did editorials that said, we cannot believe that a sheriff would say that he will not enforce all laws. And I'm saying, one, they do not know what they ask. And secondly, my oath of office does not say that I'm going to enforce all laws. That's what they think it says, but that's not what it says. I'm going to uphold the ultimate law, the supreme law of the land, and that is the Constitution. They can pass all the laws they want, and the liberals will say, well, there's been no gun confiscation, and there never will be. Well, Connecticut is a classic example of how this is leading to gun confiscation, because now they've created a law that makes lots of people felons, supposedly, and they probably know who has many of these guns. And so now the crux of this is, are they going to go in and start confiscating this, knowing that? I would dare say that if they're wise, they dare not do this. They need to uphold their oath of office and say, I don't care what legislation is passed. If it violates the Constitution, we are not going to enforce it. As a sheriff, I can say that. I don't check my mind at the door. And why would I take an oath of office if I had to do everything that a judge or a legislator did? That's why we have three branches of government, and quite frankly, I can just take a stand and say, I will not enforce that, or I will not enforce that court order. Now, I can't just do it willy-nilly. I need to probably have a good reason, or a judge may try to find me contempt and whatnot. I don't want to be in my own jail, but I will if it's for liberty. If I get arrested by federal agents and it's because I defended a milk farmer because they were violating his rights, I will wear that as a badge of honor, and I am not scared to go to prison or to be persecuted because I've upheld my oath of office and taken a stand for the Constitution. Start with just little by little. You know, you don't want to go in and tell them what to do, but diplomatically go in there and start talking to them. Share with them books like that have been written from Richard Mack, The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, and the sheriff.
I highly recommend them. I've read them all. I mean,
that's how I started, quite frankly. And I'll tell you, through the years, I saw things like Ruby Ridge and Waco and even Hurricane Katrina, and the federal government coming in there and seizing firearms from the people. You know, most patrol officers don't think a lot about the Constitution unless they have a leader that leads them to them, like I have.
Do you believe, and you believe it's a states' rights issue, do you believe the federal government has any right to any form of gun control?
No, I do not believe so. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution clearly spells out what the federal government should be or is authorized to do. And everything else goes back to the states. It's reserved for the states to mandate that. In Indiana, where I'm from, the Indiana Constitution spells it out even further. In Article 1, Section 32, it says, the people shall have a right to arm themselves to defend themselves and the state. So, you know, even if it is taken up by the states, they are restricted usually by their own constitution.
Jeff, just from a legal analyst standpoint, what do you make of that?
I mean, that's just factually wrong. The federal government is supreme in this. There is a supremacy clause in the Constitution. If there's a conflict between state law and federal law, the federal government wins. However, the federal government does have to abide by the Second Amendment, too. So the question, there is no doubt that the federal government has the right to engage in some sort of gun control. The question is, what can they ban? They cannot ban handguns. We know that from the Supreme Court. But can they ban assault weapons? Can they ban tanks? Can they ban Stinger missiles? You bet they can. And they do And so that much we know is that the federal government can ban certain weapons, but they can't ban all weapons.